Why was everyone staring at the woman in 22C? She didn't belong, at least that's what they all thought. The New York to DC flight was packed with people who wore their success like armor, sharp suits, designer watches, expensive perfume that probably cost more than some people's rent, and then there was her. Seat 22C, a woman in a faded gray hoodie with worn elbows, patched jeans, scuffed sneakers with frayed laces, dark hair pulled into a messy ponytail, no makeup, no jewelry. Just a small fabric tote clutched tight against her chest, like it was the only thing in the world worth holding onto. Amelia. That was her name, 29 years old, slumped against the window in economy class, eyes closed, breathing slow and steady. She looked tired, not the kind of tired you get from a long day, the kind that settles deep in your bones, the kind that comes from carrying something heavy for too long. And the cabin couldn't stop judging her. Victor saw her first, mid-40s, Wall Street type. His suit probably cost more than her entire outfit. He leaned toward his seatmate Ryan, a slick-haired finance guy with gelled hair and a smirk that never quite left his face. Victor's voice was loud, intentionally loud. "Bet she used her last dime for that seat," he sneered. Ryan chuckled. The kind of laugh that says, "Yeah, I'm better than this." A few rows back, Tara was live streaming, young, glossy highlights, thousands of followers hanging on her every word. She angled her phone toward Amelia, her voice dripping with mock concern. "Guys, look at seat 22C. Does she even know where she is?" She zoomed in. Total bargain bin vibes. The comments flooded in. Laughing emojis, skull emojis. Someone wrote, "She lost or something." Laughter rippled through the cabin like a wave. Amelia didn't move. Her eyes stayed closed. Her breathing never changed, like she was somewhere else entirely, somewhere they couldn't reach. Elise sat a few rows ahead, navy dress, mid-30s, corporate consultant, the kind of woman who made sure everyone knew she was important. She leaned toward her balding colleague, her voice just loud enough. "I bet she's one of those charity cases the airline lets on for PR." A few passengers nodded. Their smirks said everything. Elise tossed her hair, earrings glinting under the cabin lights. "It's almost offensive sitting here with us." Amelia's fingers brushed the zipper of her tote, but she didn't open her eyes. The laughter grew, a low hum of agreement, like they'd all decided together. She didn't belong, she was beneath them. An inconvenience, a mistake, someone who'd wandered into the wrong world. Across the aisle, an older couple whispered. Linda wore a diamond bracelet that sparkled with every movement of her wrist. Her husband, Tom, was glued to his phone, probably tracking stock prices. "She really doesn't belong here," Linda said, loud enough. Tom didn't even look up. "Probably got on the wrong flight." They both chuckled, the kind of laughter that comes easy when you've never had to worry about anything. A flight attendant named Jake walked by, tall, buzz-cut, the kind of guy who took his job way too seriously. He slammed a plastic cup of water onto Amelia's tray table. Hard, unnecessary, his glare said it all. "You don't belong here, you're taking up space." Amelia's hand brushed the cup, but she still didn't open her eyes. The atmosphere in that cabin was thick, heavy, like judgment had its own weight, and it was pressing down on her, every glance, every whisper, every laugh. They were all aimed at the woman in 22C, the one who didn't look like them, who didn't act like them, who didn't fit. But here's the thing they didn't know. Amelia had been judged before, by people far more dangerous than businessmen and influencers. She'd faced criticism that came with bullets and fire and decisions where one wrong move meant death. This cabin full of laughter, it was nothing. White noise, background static. She'd learned a long time ago that the loudest voices aren't always the ones worth listening to. So she kept her eyes closed, kept her breathing steady, let them think whatever they wanted, because soon enough they'd understand. They just didn't know it yet. The plane climbed higher, 35,000 feet. The sky outside was pale blue, endless, peaceful. The hum of the engines was a constant rhythm. Passengers settled into their routines, scrolling, sipping overpriced drinks, complaining about layovers they'd tell their friends about later. It was just another flight, just another Tuesday. And then the captain's voice crackled over the intercom. "Folks, we've received an unidentified warning signal. Please remain calm." Silence. For one heartbeat, maybe two. And then chaos. Passengers twisted in their seats, faces pressed against windows, phones out, recording, posting, panicking. A man in a polo shirt shouted from the back, his voice cracking. "Is it terrorists?" The word spread like wildfire. Terrorists, attack, hijacking. Victor clutched his armrest, knuckles white. He was already muttering about lawsuits, about suing the airline, about how this was unacceptable. Tara was whispering into her live stream, eyes wide. "This is wild, you guys, what's happening?" Linda gripped Tom's arm. Her diamond bracelet clinked against his watch. "We should have taken the jet," she hissed. The cabin erupted. Fear, confusion, anger. Some people were praying, some were crying, some were just frozen, staring out the windows like they might see the answer written in the clouds. And Amelia opened her eyes. Dark, steady, calm. Like she'd been waiting for this moment. She leaned forward just slightly. Her voice was soft, almost a whisper, but in the chaos it cut through. "Not terrorists, they're here for me." Victor spun around so fast his neck probably cracked. His face flushed red. "Who do you think you are, saying things like that?" he bellowed. His voice was loud, desperate, like he needed everyone to hear him, like volume could make him right. Tara swung her camera toward Amelia. Her laugh was sharp, mocking. "Oh my God, she's lost it." The comments exploded. More laughing emojis, more mockery. Someone wrote, "Main character syndrome much." An older woman in a cashmere sweater turned around. Carol, her voice was sweet, poisonous honey. "Don't stir trouble, dear, just sit down and be quiet." 4 frat boys in the back erupted. Matching hoodies, phones out. "Crazy lady in 22C, one shouted. They were recording, laughing, making a joke out of her, out of this moment, like everything was content, like everything was entertainment. Jake approached again. His jaw was set, tight. "Ma'am, stay quiet or we'll report you to security when we land." His tone was final, like she was already a solved problem, like she was already dealt with. The cabin roared with laughter. Amelia had become their spectacle, their entertainment, the punchline to a joke they were all in on. A man in a tailored blazer leaned forward. Arthur, tech executive, probably closed deals before breakfast. His grin was smug, years of winning written all over his face. "You know, if you're going to make up stories, at least dress the part," he said, gesturing at her hoodie and sneakers like they were evidence, like they proved something. Amelia's fingers tightened around her tote, but her face stayed neutral, her gaze fixed on the window. The laughter swelled, a wave rolling through the cabin. They'd collectively decided she was nothing, a joke, a nobody trying to be somebody. Arthur leaned back, satisfied. He'd gotten his moment, his laugh, his validation from the woman beside him who laughed even louder. A woman in a bright red coat stood to stretch. Natalie, PR executive probably. She glanced at Amelia, lips curling. "Some people shouldn't be allowed in public. It's embarrassing for the rest of us." A few passengers murmured agreement, low voices, sharp edges. Amelia adjusted her tote strap, but she stayed silent. The cabin's judgment wrapped around her like something alive, something breathing, waiting for her to crack, to react, to give them what they wanted. But she didn't, because she knew something they didn't. She knew what was coming. And then it happened. A roar, deep, guttural, nothing like the plane's engines. It vibrated through the cabin, through the seats, through their bones. Heads snapped toward the windows, and there they were. 2 F-22 Raptors, slicing through the sky, so close you could see the rivets, so close you could feel the power radiating off them. Screams filled the cabin. Tara's phone shook in her hand. Her live stream went crazy, comments flooding in faster than she could read. "This is some action movie stuff," a frat guy shouted, face pressed against the glass. Linda's bracelet clinked as she grabbed Tom's hand. "What is this? What's happening?" Her voice was shaking now, not so confident anymore. Victor was already typing on his phone. Half-written email to the airline, demanding explanations, demanding compensation, demanding something, anything. Jake froze in the aisle. His radio crackled with static. His face had gone pale. And Amelia opened her eyes again, slowly this time. She gazed out the window, her lips parted, a quiet breath escaped. The jets moved with rhythm, familiar rhythm, like a heartbeat she hadn't felt in ages, like coming home. A few rows back, an old man leaned forward. George, veteran, hands trembling with age. He adjusted his glasses, squinting at the jets. Something in his eyes changed. Recognition, or maybe memory, like he'd seen something like this before, a long time ago. The Raptors moved in perfect formation, dancing around the commercial airliner like it was choreography, like they'd done this 1,000 times, and maybe they had, just not for this plane, not for this flight. One of the jets pulled ahead, tilted its wings, a salute, unmistakable, deliberate. The cabin went silent. Not the scared silence from before. This was different. This was the kind of silence that comes when people realize they've missed something, something big, something important. A voice crackled over the radio. It wasn't the captain this time. It was different, military, precise. "Night Viper 22, welcome back." And then it appeared. Air Force One. The most recognizable aircraft in the world, blue and white. American flag painted on the tail. It emerged from the clouds like something out of a dream or a movie, except this wasn't a movie. This was real. This was happening, right now, right here. It tilted its wings, just like the Raptors had, a salute, but this one felt different. This one felt personal. The cabin was frozen, every eye on the window, every mouth open, every phone recording, but nobody was laughing now. Amelia didn't react, she just watched. Her expression hadn't changed, like she'd expected this, like she'd known all along. Victor's phone slipped from his hand. Tara's livestream had gone silent. No commentary, no jokes, just her camera pointed at the window, shaking slightly. The frat boys had stopped filming. Carol was gripping the armrest. Elise was pale. Linda was crying, actually crying. George was the first to speak. His voice was quiet, reverent. "Night Viper." He said it like a prayer, like a legend, like something holy. Someone near the front asked what everyone was thinking. "What's Night Viper?" George didn't take his eyes off the window. The best pilot the Air Force ever had, saved the president's life, took a hit that should have killed her. His voice cracked. "They said she died." The words hung in the air. Died. Everyone turned to look at Amelia, the woman in the faded hoodie, the woman they'd laughed at, mocked, judged, dismissed. She met their eyes, calm, steady, and for the first time since boarding, she spoke loudly enough for them all to hear. "I chose to disappear, but if the sky calls, I'm still Night Viper." The weight of those words landed heavy, quiet, powerful. A younger flight attendant approached. Sarah, nervous smile, hands fidgeting with her apron. "Ma'am, I didn't know, can I get you anything?" Her voice was soft, apologetic. Her eyes couldn't meet Amelia's. "Water would be nice," Amelia replied. Her voice was gentle but firm, like she didn't need the apology but accepted it anyway. Sarah nodded, stepped back, her face flushed. The cabin watched, some passengers shifting uncomfortably, seeing their own misjudgments reflected back at them, seeing who they'd become in the last hour, and maybe not liking it very much. And then someone started clapping. Slow at first, just one person, then another. Then the whole cabin erupted, standing ovations, applause that roared like thunder. Some people were crying, others were staring at Amelia like they were seeing her for the first time, because they really were. Tara was frozen, her phone abandoned on the floor. Victor had sunk into his seat. His expensive watch suddenly felt too big, too heavy, too meaningless. George continued to cry, hands folded like he was praying, like he was witnessing something sacred. Jake stepped back, face flushed, radio silent. He couldn't look at her. But Amelia didn't acknowledge the applause. She didn't stand, didn't wave, didn't smile. She simply turned back to the window, back to her seat in 22C tote resting on her lap, eyes on the jets that had come for her. The jets that knew who she was, even if the people on this plane hadn't. The plane continued flying, under the watchful escort of the most powerful aircraft in the world, and the woman in 22C, she was exactly where she'd always been. Quiet, steady, unshakable. But now they knew, now they all knew. Who was Amelia before she became the woman in 22C? Years ago she'd been someone else entirely, a young woman in a crisp uniform standing on a tarmac somewhere hot and dusty, hair pulled tight under a flight helmet, eyes sharp, focused, ready. She was Night Viper 22, one of the best pilots the Air Force had ever known, maybe the best, the kind of pilot they write about in textbooks, the kind they make legends out of. She'd flown missions that most people would never hear about, missions that happened in the dark, that didn't make the news, that stayed classified long after the war was over. She'd protected Air Force One, not once, not twice, multiple times. She'd put her aircraft between the president and danger without hesitation, without fear, without thinking about what it might cost. And then came the day it all ended. A mission, routine, they'd said, escort duty. Simple, except nothing was ever simple when you were 30,000 feet in the air and someone on the ground wanted you dead. They'd taken a hit, anti-aircraft fire, the kind that tears through metal like it's paper, the kind that kills. The official report declared her KIA, killed in action. They'd held a funeral, folded a flag, handed it to her family, said the words people say when heroes die. She gave her life for her country. She died doing what she loved. She'll never be forgotten. Except she hadn't died. She'd survived, barely, pulled from wreckage, months in hospitals, surgeries, physical therapy, pain that never quite went away. And somewhere in all that she made a decision. She let them believe. Let them think Night Viper 22 was gone. Let them close that chapter, write that ending. Because she couldn't be that person anymore. The uniform didn't fit right. The cockpit felt wrong. The missions felt impossible, not because she couldn't fly. She could still fly better than anyone, but because something inside her had changed. Something had broken, or maybe it had finally healed. She couldn't tell the difference anymore. So she walked away, left behind the medals, the fame, the life everyone thought she wanted. She became someone else, someone ordinary, someone invisible. She'd sit in diners late at night, order black coffee, watch life rush by outside the window. Sometimes a jet would streak across the sky and she'd tighten her grip on the mug, feel her heart rate spike, remember what it felt like to be up there, untouchable, free. But nobody noticed. Nobody asked. She was just another girl in a hoodie, just another face in the crowd. And maybe that's exactly what she wanted, to be seen without being known, to exist without being defined by what she'd done, by who she'd been. Before the jets came, before the world tilted back into chaos, there'd been a quiet moment on the plane. Amelia had reached into her tote, pulled out a photo, creased, edges worn soft from years of being touched, looked at, remembered. In the photo, a younger Amelia stood next to a tall man in a suit. His eyes were steady, kind. They mirrored hers in a way that went beyond physical resemblance, like they saw the world through the same lens, like they understood things other people didn't. Her husband. Nobody on the plane saw the photo. Nobody watched as she traced its edge with one finger. Nobody saw the brief flash of something in her eyes, memory, or maybe longing, or maybe just love that had survived everything, every deployment, every close call, every night wondering if she'd make it home. She tucked the photo back into her tote, carefully, like it was precious, because it was. It was proof that she'd been more than Night Viper, that she'd been human, that she'd loved and been loved, that there was someone waiting for her, always. From a few rows back, a young man stood up. Ethan, maybe mid-20s, graduate student, the kind who still believed books held all the answers. His voice shook, but he pushed through. I read about Night Viper in school. He clutched a book to his chest, a history of military aviation. She saved the president. They said she died. His eyes were wide, locked on Amelia like she was a living legend, because to him she was the person from the pages, the one he'd studied, the one he'd written papers about, and she was sitting right there, in a hoodie, in economy, like she was anyone. The cabin turned, again, but this time it was different. This wasn't judgment. This was awe, confusion, disbelief. Some passengers leaned forward, others shook their heads. How could this be real? How could the woman they'd mocked be the one from the history books? Ethan clutched his book, hands trembling, but Amelia didn't turn. Her hand paused on her tote for just a moment. A fleeting recognition. The applause softened into a murmur, the kind of sound people make when they don't know what to say, when words feel inadequate. Ethan sat down slowly, book still open, still showing a page about her, about Night Viper, about the mission, about the sacrifice. And the plane kept flying, with its escort, with its passengers who just learned what it meant to judge a book by its cover, what it meant to assume, what it cost to mock someone without knowing their story. They were landing soon, and nothing would ever be the same. What happens when truth catches up with cruelty? The plane touched down in D.C., smooth, professional, like nothing extraordinary had just happened. But outside the windows, the tarmac was chaos. News vans lined up like soldiers, cameras flashing, reporters shouting questions that blended into white noise. Everyone wanted the story. Everyone wanted to know about the woman in 22C, about Night Viper, about the legend that had come back from the dead. Amelia stood when the seatbelt sign went off. She grabbed her tote, slung it over her shoulder, walked down the aisle like she'd done 1,000 times before, like this was just another flight, just another destination. Her frayed hoodie and scuffed sneakers looked even more out of place now. Now that everyone knew, now that the world had tilted and nothing made sense anymore. Behind her, Victor's phone rang. He answered, listened. His face went pale, white as paper. Fired, he said, loud enough for people nearby to hear. His company's biggest client was connected to Amelia's family. One word, just one word from the right person, and Victor was finished. He'd never even know if she said anything. She probably didn't. She didn't have to. Truth has a way of traveling faster than lies. Tara's livestream had gone viral, but not the way she'd hoped, not the way she'd planned. Clips of her mocking Amelia, zooming in on her, laughing at her. Those clips spread like wildfire. Her followers turned, comments filled with anger, with disappointment, with people saying they'd expected better. By morning, her sponsorships had evaporated, emails from brands saying they were going in a different direction. Her comments section filled with vitriol, with people telling her exactly what they thought of her. Rachel, the journalist who'd been so ready to make Amelia a story, tried to backtrack, posted an apology online, carefully worded, professionally neutral, but it was too late. Her firm had already dropped her. Unprofessional conduct, they said, bad judgment, not the kind of person who represents our values. The frat boys deleted their videos, scrubbed their accounts, but someone had already screenshot everything, already saved it, already sent it to their university's alumni network. Their accounts got suspended. Their fraternity put them on probation. Their fun little joke had consequences, real ones. Jake got reassigned, ground duty. His name whispered among airline circles. You hear about Jake, the one who threatened a hero, who slammed water down in front of Night Viper. Yeah, that guy. His career wasn't over, but it was damaged, stained. He'd carry that with him. Elise's latest deal fell through. Her client cited reputational concerns, said they couldn't work with someone who showed such poor judgment, such lack of character. Natalie's PR firm issued a statement, distancing themselves from her behavior. Her social media went silent, not deleted, just quiet, like she was hiding. It wasn't dramatic. There were no explosions, no big confrontations, just consequences falling like rain, quiet, steady, inevitable. And Amelia, she walked through it all, totes swinging lightly by her side. She didn't know about any of it, didn't care about any of it. She was already somewhere else, already moving forward. The airport was packed, people everywhere, but they parted when they saw her, not because they recognized her face, but because something about her presence demanded space, commanded respect. Mike, a burly security guard, approached. His voice was low, respectful. "Ma'am, we have a car waiting for you. Orders from the top." He gestured toward a black SUV parked outside, driver standing at attention, waiting. The crowd watched, phones raised, recording, but their voices were hushed now, like they were witnessing something sacred, something they didn't fully understand but knew was important. Amelia nodded, followed Mike. Her steps were steady, sure, like she'd walked this path before, like she knew exactly where she was going. And then he arrived. Her husband. The crowd parted instinctively. He didn't need to push, didn't need to say anything. His presence did all the talking. People froze. Victor looked away, hands trembling, trying to be invisible. Tara dropped her phone. Again. Face flushed. Rachel tried to find words, but nothing came out. He just walked, quiet, confident, and people moved, because something about him said this wasn't a man you crossed, this wasn't a man you questioned. He reached Amelia, and she looked up. Her expression softened, just slightly, just enough. He didn't embrace her, didn't make a scene. He just stood beside her. Their hands brushed together, and the air felt heavier, like the atmosphere itself recognized who they were, what they'd been through. Mike held the SUV door open. His hands shook slightly. "Ma'am," he said again, voice barely above a whisper, like he was afraid to speak too loud. Amelia stepped inside. Her husband followed. The door closed. The crowd watched as the SUV pulled away. Phones still raised, but nobody was laughing now. Nobody was mocking. They were witnessing. That's all they could do. She didn't need rescuing. She never had. She'd walked through their words, their laughter, their doubt, through all of it, and she'd emerged on the other side, not by fighting back, not by proving herself to them, but by standing firm in her truth, by being exactly who she was, even when they couldn't see it, even when they refused to see it. The headlines screamed the next day. Mystery passenger in 22C salute from Air Force One. Hero who was forgotten and found again. They interviewed passengers, got quotes, built the story, made it dramatic, made it cinematic. Amelia didn't read any of them. She was already somewhere else, toed over her shoulder, husband by her side, walking into a world that finally saw her, not because she'd changed, but because they had, because they'd learned what it meant to judge too quickly, to assume too much, to mock what they didn't understand. George, the old veteran, gave an interview, tears in his eyes. "I served for 30 years, saw a lot of heroes, but Night Viper, she was different. She didn't fly for glory, didn't fly for medals. She flew because someone had to, and she was the best at it." Sarah, the young flight attendant, couldn't stop thinking about that moment, when she'd offered Amelia water, when she'd apologized, when Amelia had been gracious even though she didn't have to be. Sarah would remember that, carry it with her, use it to be better, to see better. Ethan held onto his book, the page about Night Viper. He'd add a new chapter now, in his mind, about the day he met her, about what it meant to see someone truly, not just their clothes, not just their appearance, but who they really were underneath. Because that's what they'd all learned. On that flight, in that cabin, with that woman in 22C, they'd learned that worth isn't worn on the outside, that heroism doesn't always look like what you expect, that the quietest person in the room might be the strongest one there. Amelia had taught them without saying a word, without fighting, without needing to prove anything. She just existed, and that had been enough. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts. It sits quietly in seat 22C. It wears a faded hoodie and scuffed sneakers. It holds a tote like a lifeline. It closes its eyes and breathes steady while the world judges. And when the moment comes, when the jets appear and the truth is revealed, dignity doesn't gloat, doesn't boast, doesn't need to. It just continues being exactly what it's always been. For everyone who has ever been looked down upon, for everyone who's been judged by their appearance, by their circumstances, by where they sit or what they wear or how they look, this story is for you. You are not invisible. Your worth isn't determined by their perceptions. Like Amelia, you carry it quietly, strongly, in ways they can't see, in ways they might never understand. And that's okay, because you know who you are, you know what you've survived, what you've overcome, what you carry, and someday maybe they'll see it too. Maybe the jets will come. Maybe the truth will reveal itself, or maybe it won't. Maybe you'll continue being invisible to them. But you'll never be invisible to yourself. You'll never be invisible to the people who matter, the ones who see past the surface, who recognize strength that doesn't announce itself, who understand that the quietest person might be the one who's fought the hardest battles. You are not alone, you are not less than, you are exactly enough, exactly as you are right now, in this moment. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts.